The day started like any other on Earth. People were going about their lives, drinking coffee, scrolling through social media, and complaining about traffic. No one expected that this ordinary Tuesday would turn into the beginning of humanity's first real brush with an alien empire. It all began near a small town in Nebraska. Lance Harper, a retired Air Force pilot who now worked as a janitor at an old missile silo, was sweeping up dust when he noticed something strange. The control panel, long thought to be inactive, blinked weakly. He frowned. This thing hadn't worked in decades. Curious, Lance leaned over and tapped it gently. Suddenly, lights flared across the board, buttons lit up, and alarms blared. "What the heck?" Lance muttered, stepping back. He didn't know much about modern technology. He barely knew how to use his phone, but he recognized trouble when he saw it. Before he could figure out what was happening, the system seemed to take control of itself. With a loud hum, one of the ancient nuclear warheads stored deep underground launched into space. Lance froze, staring at the empty launch tube. His mind raced. Had he just done ... That wasn't sure if anyone would believe him if he said it was an accident. Shaking his head, he grabbed his broom and hurried outside, hoping no one had seen anything. Meanwhile, millions of miles away, the Galactic Empire of Thalzar wasn't amused. Their sleek silver ship hovered near Saturn, scanning the planet. Below, for signs of intelligent life, they weren't invaders. They were explorers, sent by their leaders to make peaceful contact. But then, out of nowhere, a glowing projectile streaked toward them. Inside the ship, the crew braced themselves. The warhead exploded harmlessly against their shields, but the message was clear. These humans meant business. Act. Or maybe they were just clumsy. Either way, the Empire decided it was time to investigate further. Back on Earth, news of the mysterious rocket spread quickly. Social media erupted with theories. Some claimed it was a secret government experiment. Others joked that aliens must have provoked us somehow. By evening, every news channel was talking about it. Reporters stood outside the White House demanding answers. What exactly had happened? Was there life beyond Earth? And why did someone launch a nuke into space? In response, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. Representatives from around the world gathered in New York City to discuss the situation. Everyone agreed that humanity needed to speak with one voice if aliens really were out there. But choosing the right person to represent Earth proved harder than anyone expected. After hours of debate, they settled on Donna Bellamy. She wasn't a scientist or a politician. She was a podcast host known for her wild conspiracy theories and motivational speeches. Her show, Truth Bomb Tuesdays, had millions of listeners who loved her fiery rants about shadow governments and lizards. People. The UN figured she'd be perfect because, well, who better to talk to aliens than someone used to yelling at invisible forces? Donna arrived at the UN headquarters wearing a bright red suit and carrying a stack of notes scribbled on napkins. Cameras flashed as she took the stage. Smiling confidently, she looked directly into the cameras and said, "Listen up, Galaxy buddies. We don't know who you are, but we're not afraid of you. If you're here to help, great. If you're here to cause trouble, bring it on. But let me make one thing crystal clear. Earth doesn't pay taxes to anyone." Her words echoed around the room. Gasps filled the air, followed by nervous laughter. Did she seriously say that? Yes, she did. And she wasn't done yet. "We've got problems of our own," Donna continued, waving her arms dramatically. "We can barely agree on what to have for dinner, let alone deal with some fancy pants space council telling us what to do. So unless you plan to fix climate change, cure cancer, and invent free Wi-Fi for everyone, stay out of our business." The crowd erupted. Half the people cheered, while the other half buried their faces in their hands. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to anyone, Donna's speech was being broadcast live across the galaxy, thanks to a stray satellite signal picked up by the Thalzar ship. On board the alien vessel, the crystalline beings watched Donna's rant with a mix of confusion and amusement. One of them translated her words into shimmering patterns of light that danced across their communication screens. Another tilted its translucent head, clearly puzzled. "Are they serious?" one of the aliens asked. using telepathic waves. They launched a weapon at us, another replied. And now they're yelling nonsense into the void. I think they might be insane. Despite their confusion, the Thalzar decided to send a formal envoy to Earth. After all, diplomacy was their specialty. They landed near Washington, D.C., their ship descending silently through the clouds. The craft touched down. Crowds gathered, snapping photos and shouting questions. Soldiers surrounded the area, unsure whether to attack or offer snacks. When the envoy stepped out, they looked unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Tall, glowing, and made entirely of shifting crystal, they moved gracefully despite their imposing size. A human interpreter named Ethan Cruz trailed behind them, wearing a bulky translator collar around his neck. Ethan, a college dropout from Arizona, had been hired last minute after responding to an ad online. He wasn't prepared for this. "Greetings, citizens of Earth," the lead envoy said, their voice calm and melodic through the translator. "We come in peace. Please explain why you attacked our ship." Ethan hesitated, glancing nervously at the soldiers. Finally, he stammered, Sorry about that. It was kind of a misunderstanding. We thought you were, trying to invade." The envoy blinked slowly, their crystals pulsing faintly. "Invade? Why would we invade? Has nothing we need." This statement caused murmurs among the humans. Nothing they needed? It felt oddly insulting. "Well, maybe not now," Ethan added hastily, "but we're working on it. Give us a few centuries, and we'll have hoverboards and robot butlers. And stuff." The envoy tilted their head again, clearly unimpressed. "Very well. However, we require compensation for the damage caused by your projectile compensation." The word hit like a bomb. Compensation sounded suspiciously like money. Money sounded suspiciously like taxes. And taxes were something humans hated more than almost anything else. Before Ethan could respond, Donna Bellamy pushed her way to the front of the crowd. Microphone in hand, she shouted, "Oh, hell no. You think you can just waltz in here and demand cash? Fat chance, buddy." The envoys stared at her, their crystals flickering uncertain and seen. The galactic empire of Thalzar wasn't used to being talked back to. For thousands of years they had traveled the stars, meeting civilizations far older and wiser than humanity. Most planets welcomed them with open arms or tentacles, depending on the species, and agreed to follow their rules. But Earth was different. After Donna Bellamy's fiery speech, the envoy decided that diplomacy might take longer than expected. They sent a message back to their home planet explaining the situation. The response came quickly. Send auditors. If these humans didn't understand peace, maybe they'd understand numbers. A few days later, 6 glowing jellyfish-like creatures arrived on Earth. Their bodies floated gently above the ground, pulsing with soft colors that shifted as they communicated. Each one carried a small device that projected holographic charts and graphs. They were accompanied by Ethan Cruz, the nervous human interpreter who still hadn't figured out how to work the translator collar properly. Ethan led the group to a conference room in New York City, where representatives from various governments waited. At the head of the table sat a man named Harold Jenkins, a middle-aged accountant known for his love of spreadsheets and dislike of small talk. He adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "Okay," Harold said, glancing at the aliens. "Let's get this over with. What do you want?" One of the jellyfish floated closer, its light turning a calm blue. Through the translator, it spoke. "We are here to assess your economic contributions to the Galactic Economic Accord. Please provide detailed records of your global income, expenditures, and resource allocation." Harold blinked. "You want what now?" Ethan leaned forward, trying to explain. "They're asking for like all our money stuff. Taxes, budgets, GDP, that kind of thing." Harold frowned. "We don't have global anything. Every country does its own thing. Some places barely keep track of taxes at all." The jellyfish turned a brighter shade of blue, which Ethan interpreted as confusion. Another one chimed in, its voice calm but firm. Surely there is some central authority managing planetary resources. At this point, Donna Bellamy barged into the room, late as usual. She grabbed a chair, flipped it around backward, and sat down with her arms crossed. Nope, not happening. We don't answer to anyone but ourselves. The jellyfish pulsed red briefly, a sign of frustration, according to Ethan. One of them addressed Donna directly. Without proper data, we cannot determine your value to the Accord. Non-compliance will result in penalties. Donna smirked. Penalties? Like what? You gonna slap us with a parking ticket? Ethan winced. This wasn't going well. To make matters worse, the auditors soon realized that Earth's financial systems were a mess. Countries argued over who should share information. Banks refused to cooperate, citing privacy laws. And when the jellyfish asked about cryptocurrency, everyone just stared blankly. Finally, someone suggested bringing in a tech expert. That's how Ethan found himself sitting across from Derek Voss. A billionaire entrepreneur famous for building self-driving cars and funding underground bunkers, Derek wore jeans and a hoodie, looking more like a college student than a business tycoon. So, Derek said, leaning back in his chair, you're telling me these space jellies want to audit Bitcoin? Pretty much, Ethan replied. Derek grinned. Tell them to try. I'll give them a blockchain headache they'll never recover from. While Derek plotted ways to confuse the auditors, chaos erupted elsewhere. News of the Galactic tax demands spread online, sparking outrage. Memes flooded social media. One popular image showed Uncle Sam flipping off a UFO with the caption, "We don't pay space taxes." Protests broke out in major cities. People held signs saying things like, "Nitrogen Galactic IRS. Keep your tentacles off our wallet." Even kids joined in, selling lemonade stands with signs reading "Free lemonade if you hate aliens." Meanwhile, the auditors grew increasingly frustrated. They couldn't believe how disorganized humans were. When they asked about GDP per capita, Ethan shrugged and said half the population doesn't even file taxes. The other half probably forgot. One of the jellyfish turned purple, a color Ethan hadn't seen before. "This is unacceptable," it said through the translator. "Your lack of organization threatens the stability of the Accord." Donna stood up, pointing a finger at the creature. "Listen, buddy, we've got bigger problems than your fancy space club. We're busy dealing with climate change, pandemics, and reality TV stars running for office. So unless you're offering to fix those issues, maybe focus on someone else." The room fell silent. The jellyfish floated silently, their lights flickering uncertainly. Finally, one of them spoke. "Very well. We shall return to our council and reconsider our approach." As the auditors left, Ethan let out a sigh of relief. But Donna wasn't done yet. She grabbed a megaphone and stepped outside, addressing the crowd of reporters waiting eagerly for updates. "Let me make this clear," she shouted. "Earth isn't joining any galactic pyramid schemes. We fought wars to avoid paying taxes, and we're not starting now." The crowd cheered. Cameras flashed. Someone started playing Born in the USA over a portable speaker. It felt like a victory, even though no one was entirely sure what had just happened. Back at the spaceship, the jellyfish reported their findings to the Thalzar Council. The verdict was unanimous. Earth was impossible. Its people were stubborn, chaotic, and utterly unpredictable. Instead of forcing compliance, the council decided to send a higher-ranking diplomat to negotiate. Little did they know, humanity was already preparing for round 2. The galactic empire of Thalzar wasn't used to failure. For centuries, they had expanded their reach across the stars, bringing order to chaotic worlds and integrating new civilizations into their economic system. But Earth was a headache they hadn't anticipated. The council debated their next move carefully, knowing that brute force would only make things worse. Humans were stubborn, unpredictable, and worst of all, loud. Instead of sending another group of auditors, the council decided to send Zarak the Ninth, one of their most respected diplomats. Zarak had brokered peace between warring empires, settled disputes over interstellar mining rights, and once convinced an entire species of sentient slugs to stop eating each other's habitats. If anyone could handle Earth, it was him, Zarek, arrived on a sleek silver ship that descended gracefully into Washington, D.C., accompanied by Ethan Cruz, who still hadn't figured out how to turn off the translator collar without accidentally ordering pizza online. This time, however, humanity was ready, or at least they thought they were. A massive crowd gathered outside the landing site, holding signs and chanting slogans. Some protesters waved flags, others blew vuvuzelas, and a few even dressed as aliens wearing Uncle Sam hats. Porters shoved microphones toward anyone willing to speak, asking questions like, "Do you think aliens should pay us taxes? And what's your stance on intergalactic trade tariffs?" Inside the Capitol building, a special committee waited anxiously for Zarek's arrival. Among them was Cassidy Ray, a former bartender turned uninterpreter. She'd been chosen because she spoke 7 languages fluently, including Klingon, which she learned from watching reruns. Her job was to ensure clear communication, but judging by the chaos so far, clarity seemed unlikely. When Zarek entered the room, he looked nothing like the jellyfish-like auditors from before. He stood tall, his body covered in shimmering scales that reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. His voice came through the translator collar in a deep, calm tone that immediately commanded attention. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," Zarok began. "I come seeking understanding and cooperation. Let us discuss how we may coexist peacefully." Cassidy nodded encouragingly, though her hands trembled slightly. Beside her, Harold Jenkins, the accountant from Part 2, rolled his eyes. "Here we go again," he muttered under his breath. Donna Bellamy, ever-present and unapologetic, leaned forward with a smirk. "Coexist? Sure, buddy.
Yes.
Just don't expect us to start filling out galactic tax forms anytime soon." Zarok tilted his head, his scales shifting to a curious shade of green. Taxes are merely a means of ensuring mutual growth and prosperity. Without them, civilizations crumble. Harold adjusted his glasses and sighed. "He's not wrong, you know." Donna shot him a glare. "Traitor." Ignoring the tension, Zarok continued. "Let us review your current systems. Perhaps together we can find common ground." What followed was hours of back-and-forth arguments, interruptions, and occasional shouting matches. Harold tried to explain Earth's financial structures, but every time he mentioned something like fiscal policy or debt-to-GDP ratio, Donna interrupted with sarcastic comments about lizard overlords and space toll booths. At one point, Zarek asked about Earth's energy consumption. Harold pulled up some charts showing fossil fuels, renewable sources, and nuclear power. Zarok studied them closely, his scales turning a thoughtful blue. "This is unsustainable," he said finally. "Your reliance on finite resources will lead to collapse within centuries." Donna snorted. "Yeah, well, we're working on it. Got any solar panels lying around?" Zarek ignored her, focusing instead on Cassidy. "Is there no central authority overseeing planetary decisions?" Cassidy hesitated. "Not really. We have the United Nations, but countries mostly do their own thing. Even within nations, states and cities argue constantly." Scales. Shifted to a darker hue, indicating concern. "Such fragmentation is inefficient. How do you manage crises?" "We yell at each other until someone gives in," Harold admitted sheepishly. "And sometimes we go to war," Donna added cheerfully. "But hey, it keeps life interesting." By the end of the day, Zarok was visibly exhausted. Humanity's refusal to cooperate and their constant sarcasm was unlike anything he'd encountered before. Still, he remained determined. He requested a tour of Earth to better understand its people, hoping first-hand experience might reveal solutions. His first stop was Las Vegas, where Derek Voss offered to show him around. Derek had transformed part of the city into a giant laser array powered by cryptocurrency mining rigs. When Zarek asked what it was for, Derek grinned mischievously. "It's for planetary defense," he explained, air quoting the phrase. "You never know when you'll need to shoot down a delivery drone from Mars." Zarok blinked slowly, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Later that evening, during a dinner hosted by local officials, Derek served Zarok a plate of barbecue ribs. The alien diplomat politely declined, explaining that his species absorbed nutrients through photosynthesis. Well, good luck surviving on kale smoothies, Derek quipped, earning laughter from the crowd. Next, Zarek visited Texas, where Governor Laura Hayes proudly declared her state a sovereign alien-free zone. She handed him a cowboy hat and invited him to ride a mechanical bull. Zarok declined, politely excusing himself after witnessing a rodeo event involving flaming lassos. Finally, traveled to Oregon, where a grassroots movement called Taxpayers Against Galactic Tyranny greeted him with a parade featuring floats shaped like spaceships made of recycled materials. One float displayed a giant sign reading, "Keep your tentacles off our trees." Throughout his journey, Zarok observed humanity's quirks, their love of fast food, their obsession with sports, and their habit of arguing loudly in public forums. Despite their flaws, he couldn't deny their resilience or their creativity. Back at the Capitol, Zarok delivered his final report. Standing before the assembled committee, he addressed both humans and his fellow envoys via hologram. "Earth is unlike any civilization I have encountered. He said solemnly. Its people are chaotic, disorganized, and fiercely independent. Yet they possess qualities worth admiring: determination, innovation, and an unshakable belief in their right to self-determination." Donna raised an eyebrow. "So, does this mean we passed your little test?" Zarok hesitated before responding. In a manner of speaking, yes. However, integration into the Galactic Accord remains challenging. Perhaps compromise is possible. Both sides are willing. Before anyone could respond, a loud crash echoed through the room. A teenager named Mia Rodriguez burst in, holding a tablet. "Guys, we hacked one of their orbital platforms and turned it into a laser light show." Everyone turned to stare at her. Zarek's scales flickered wildly, cycling through colors too quickly to interpret. Finally, he let out a long sigh. "Humans," he said simply, shaking his head. "Unbelievable." As the meeting ended, Donna grabbed the microphone and addressed. "The camera's waiting outside. To the galaxy. Thanks for visiting, but we're staying independent. Don't tread on our Wi-Fi signals." The crowd erupted in cheers. Zarek returned to his ship, leaving behind a planet that baffled him completely. Back on the Thalzar Council, his report sparked heated debates. Some argued for stricter measures. Others suggested abandoning Earth altogether. For now, humanity remained free, but everyone knew this was only the beginning. After Zarek's report, the Galactic Empire of Thalzar faced a dilemma. Humanity was chaotic, stubborn, and impossible to control, but also fascinating. Some council members argued that Earth posed too much risk to ignore, while others believed it wasn't worth the trouble. In the end, they decided on a compromise: give humans one last chance to cooperate or face consequences. The Empire sent a fleet of ships to orbit Earth, positioning themselves above major cities like New York, Tokyo, and London. Their message was clear: comply or suffer the consequences. But instead of fear, humanity responded with defiance. In New York City, engineers worked tirelessly to retrofit subway tunnels into underground laser turrets. The project started as a joke when someone suggested using old train tracks to launch projectiles, but somehow it became reality. By the time the alien ships arrived, the city had turned its subways into a makeshift defense system. A group of teenagers live-streamed the process, turning it into a viral sensation. "Aliens want to mess with us?" said Carlos Rivera, a tech-savvy teenager who led the effort. "Let's show them what happens when you mess with New York." Meanwhile, in Texas, Governor Laura Hayes declared her state an independent zone, free from both human and alien interference. She ordered all SpaceX rockets within state borders to be repurposed for planetary defense, instead of missiles. The rockets were loaded with barbecue sauce and fireworks, a mix designed a little more for spectacle than destruction. "We don't negotiate with invaders," Governor Hayes announced during a press conference. "But if y'all want to talk over brisket, we're open to that." Her words sparked laughter and pride across the country. People began referring to her as the barbecue governor, and memes of her riding a rocket spread across social media. In Oregon, things took a stranger turn. A grassroots movement known as Taxpayers Against Galactic Tyranny hacked into one of the Empire's orbital platforms. Using pirated Wi-Fi signals and outdated software, they reprogrammed the platform to display laser light shows instead of firing weapons. For days, the skies above Coachella glowed with colorful patterns, spelling out messages like nitrogen monoxide, Texas, and Earth for L, YFE. The Empire watched these events unfold with growing frustration. Their advanced technology and superior numbers should have given them the upper hand. Yet humanity's creativity and sheer unpredictability kept throwing them off balance. Back in Washington, D.C., Donna Bellamy rallied the public with fiery speeches, broadcast live on every channel. Standing in front of a crowd, waving American flags and holding signs that read, "We won't pay space rent," she shouted. "They think they can scare us? We've dealt with worse, from plagues to pandemics. Too bad coffee at Starbucks. Bring it on, space jellies." Her words inspired millions. Protests erupted worldwide, with people chanting slogans like "Keep your tentacles off our planet" and "Earth first, aliens later." Even kids joined in, selling lemonade stands with signs reading "Free lemonade if you hate aliens." Cassidy Ray, the interpreter who had worked closely with Xerox, found herself caught between two worlds. On one side, she admired humanity's courage and determination. On the other, she understood the Empire's perspective. They weren't evil. They just wanted order. Late one night, she sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through news articles and wondering how this standoff would end. The next morning, Cassidy received an urgent call from Harold Jenkins, the accountant who had tried, explaining Earth's economy to the auditors. He sounded panicked. "They're preparing to strike," he said. "We need to act fast." "What do you mean?" Cassidy asked, her heart racing. "The Empire gave us an ultimatum," Harold explained. "Either we agree to their terms by midnight or they'll disable our power grids." Cassidy froze. Without electricity, billions of lives would be at risk. Hospitals, water supplies, communication networks all depended on power. Humanity's defiance might win points for bravery, but it wouldn't save them from disaster. Determined to find a solution, Cassidy reached out to Derek Voss, the eccentric billionaire behind the Las Vegas laser array. If anyone could come up with a plan, it was him. When she arrived at his headquarters, Derek was busy testing a new prototype, a massive electromagnetic pulse generator disguised as a slot machine. "What's this supposed to do?" Cassidy asked, eyeing the contraption skeptically. "It fries." "Alien tech," Derek replied with a grin. "They try to shut us down. We hit back harder." Cassidy sighed. "That's not going to solve anything. We need diplomacy, not more chaos." Derek shrugged. "Sometimes chaos is the only language people understand." Before they could argue further, news broke that the Empire had intercepted a transmission from Earth's military detailing plans. To retaliate, misinterpreting it as an act of aggression, they prepared to fire on several cities. Panic spread quickly. Governments scrambled to respond, but no one knew what to do. Then, unexpectedly, a voice cut through the chaos. It was Bobby Langston, former WWE wrestler turned congressman from Alabama. Known for his larger-than-life personality and love of dramatic entrances, Bobby stepped onto the world stage, wearing a cowboy hat and carrying a megaphone. Addressing both humanity and the Empire, he shouted, "Hold up, y'all! Let's settle this like adults." His unexpected appearance stunned everyone, including the aliens. Through Ethan Cruz's translator caller, Bobby delivered a passionate plea for peace. "Look, I get it," he said. "You're mad because we won't play by your rules. But here's the thing. We're still figuring out our own rules. Give us a break, okay?" To everyone's surprise, the Empire listened. Xerox, watching from afar, recognized Bobby's sincerity and suggested reopening negotiations. Reluctantly, the Council agreed. As talks resumed, humanity learned that the Empire wasn't entirely unreasonable. They offered a deal. Earth could remain autonomous, but needed to contribute one representative to the Galactic Assembly. After much debate, the UN selected Bobby Langston for the role. Bobby accepted with enthusiasm, though he admitted he didn't fully understand what the job entailed. "Guess I'll wing it," he said with a shrug. Ain't nothing a good handshake and a smile can't fix. With tensions easing, the Empire withdrew their ships, leaving Earth temporarily safe. But as celebrations broke out worldwide, Cassidy couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven it could stand up to the galaxy, but standing together was another challenge altogether. Bobby Langston wasn't exactly what anyone would call diplomatic material. A former WWE wrestler, known for his larger-than-life personality and theatrical antics, he had spent most of his career throwing opponents over ropes and delivering motivational speeches to roaring crowds. Now, as Earth's first representative to the Galactic Assembly, he found himself standing on an alien spaceship surrounded by beings who looked nothing like humans, who definitely didn't cheer. When he flexed his muscles, the Galactic Assembly was held aboard a massive space station orbiting a distant star. The station itself was breathtaking, with shimmering walls that seemed alive, glowing corridors that shifted colors depending on mood, and gravity so perfect it felt like walking on clouds. For Bobby, though, the real challenge wasn't the setting it was figuring out how to represent a planet full of stubborn, chaotic people who couldn't even agree on pizza toppings. When Bobby entered the assembly hall, all eyes, or whatever passed for eyes, among the various species turned toward him. He grinned confidently, tipped his cowboy hat, and said, "Howdy, y'all. Name's Bobby Langston, proud representative of Earth. Let's get this show on the road." His words echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into dozens of languages, thanks to a universal translator device clipped to his belt. Some aliens tilted their heads curiously. Others exchanged glances that suggested they weren't sure whether to laugh or panic. Xerox the Ninth, the diplomat who had previously dealt with Earth, floated closer. His scales shimmered in shades of calming blue. "Welcome, Ambassador Langston," Xerox said politely. "We hope you are prepared to contribute meaningfully to our discussions." Bobby nodded enthusiastically. "You bet I am. Back home, we say there's no problem too big that can't be solved with a little teamwork and a lot of barbecue sauce." This earned a few confused blinks from the other delegates. Zarek hesitated before responding. "Very well. Please take your seat." As the meeting began, Bobby quickly realized that galactic politics were far more complicated than wrestling matches. Each species presented reports on trade agreements, resource management, and interstellar diplomacy. Terms like quantum flux, redistribution, and cosmic entropy stabilization flew around the room faster than Bobby could process them. By the time lunch arrived, a buffet featuring dishes that ranged from edible crystals to glowing liquids, he was already feeling overwhelmed. "Man, I thought Congress was tough," Bobby muttered under his breath as he picked at a plate of something vaguely resembling mashed potatoes. Beside him, Ethan Cruz, still wearing the translator collar, offered some advice. "Just stick to basics," Ethan whispered. "Be polite, nod occasionally, and don't mention wrestling unless someone asks." Bobby frowned. "But wrestling is universal. Everyone loves a good smackdown." Ethan sighed. "Trust me, these guys aren't fans." Despite the challenges, Bobby tried his best to participate. When it was Earth's turn to speak, he stood up proudly, adjusted his hat, and launched into a speech that combined patriotism, humor, and a surprising amount of wisdom. "Folks," Bobby began, looking around the room, "Earth ain't perfect. We've got problems, big ones. But here's the thing. We're working on it. Every day we're trying to build a better future for ourselves and our kids. So yeah, maybe we're messy, loud, and kind of crazy. That's what makes us special. And if you want to work with us, you got to meet us halfway." His words earned mixed reactions. Some delegates clapped politely. Others scribbled notes furiously. One particularly grumpy-looking alien with tentacles, covering its face, made a noise that sounded suspiciously like a groan. Afterward, Xerox approached Bobby privately. "Your speech was unique," he said diplomatically. "However, the Council requires concrete contributions. What does Earth offer?" Bobby scratched his head. "Well, we've got Netflix. Also, tacos. Oh, and Wi-Fi." "Can T forget Wi-Fi?" Xeric's scales flickered uncertainly. "While those are intriguing options, perhaps something more substantial would be appreciated." Back on Earth, humanity waited anxiously for updates. News outlets broadcast live coverage of Bobby's mission, complete with commentary from experts and endless replays of his opening speech. Social media exploded with memes of Bobby flexing in zero gravity, captioned with phrases like Space Body Slam and Galactic Showdown. Meanwhile, tensions remained high. Despite the ceasefire, rumors spread that factions within the Galactic Empire still wanted to punish Earth for its defiance. Protesters gathered outside major cities, holding signs that read "No Galactic Bullying," and "We fight dirty in space too." In Las Vegas, Derek Voss continued upgrading his laser array, now dubbing it the Planetary Defense Initiative. He invited reporters to tour the facility, showing off rows of repurposed mining rigs and Tesla coils. "If they come for us," Derek declared, "they'll regret it." Governor Laura Hayes of Texas doubled down on her state's independence, issuing proclamations that banned alien interference within Texan airspace. She also announced plans to launch a series of rockets filled with glitter bombs, claiming they'd serve as both defense and entertainment. Even Oregon stayed active, with the Taxpayers Against Galactic Tyranny movement organizing a massive art project. Using recycled materials, they built a giant statue of a human flipping off the stars, complete with a plaque that read, "Thanks, but no thanks." On board the space station, Bobby struggled to balance representing Earth's interests with navigating the complexities of galactic politics. During one heated debate about interstellar tariffs, he accidentally insulted a delegation from a slug-like species by calling their economic policies slimy. Chaos ensued, with several delegates storming out of the room and Zarek frantically trying to restore order. By the end of the week, Bobby was exhausted, but determined. He called an emergency meeting with Earth's leaders via hologram, urging them to send proposals for cooperation. "We need ideas," he shouted. "Something that shows we're willing to work together but doesn't compromise who we are." Cassidy. Ray stepped forward, suggesting a bold move. "Offer cultural exchange programs. Let them experience Earth firsthand," she explained. "Food, art, all the things that make us human." Harold Jenkins added, "And maybe share some technology? Like renewable energy solutions? Show them we're not just troublemakers." With renewed hope, Bobby returned to the assembly armed with Earth's new proposal. As he presented it, he emphasized humanity's creativity, resilience, and willingness to learn. "We might not fit neatly into your systems," he admitted, "but give us a chance, and we'll surprise you." To everyone's relief, the council agreed to consider the plan. While not a permanent solution, it marked a step toward coexistence. For the first time since first contact, humanity saw a glimmer of hope, but as Bobby prepared to return home, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges. And Earth was ready to face them all, while yelling loudly and refusing to back down. The Galactic Council took weeks to review Earth's proposal. During that time, humanity held its breath, unsure whether their cultural exchange idea would work. Back on Earth, people tried to go about their daily lives, but it was hard to ignore. The giant alien ships still hovering above major cities. Some saw them as a threat. Others joked they were just tourists waiting for better weather. Bobby Langston returned home, a hero war at least. That's what the headline said. Reporters followed him everywhere, asking questions like, "What's it like in space? Did you wrestle any aliens?" Bobby handled the attention with his usual charm, flashing his signature grin and saying things like, "Let's just say I left him cheering for more." While the public celebrated, behind closed doors, leaders debated next steps. Cassidy Ray worked tirelessly to organize Earth's contributions to the cultural exchange program. She reached out to musicians, artists, chefs, and scientists, inviting them to share their talents with the galaxy. Derek Voss offered to send his laser array designs as a gesture of goodwill, though he warned they might be used for cosmic karaoke instead of defense. Governor Laura Hayes shipped cases of barbecue sauce labeled "Made in Texas." Good luck replicating this. Finally, the Galactic Council announced their decision. Earth would remain autonomous, but must contribute one representative to the assembly permanently. In return, the Empire agreed to provide advanced technology and resources to help solve global challenges like climate change and food shortages. It wasn't a perfect deal, but it was enough for now. Celebrations erupted worldwide. Cities lit up with fireworks, and concerts featured bands playing songs dedicated to interstellar peace. Social media flooded with hashtags like hashtag Galactic Independence Day and hashtag Earth for the win. Even kids joined in, drawing pictures of humans shaking tentacles with aliens. But not everyone was happy. A small faction within the Galactic Empire, led by a warlord named Xyler, the Unyielding, refused to accept the compromise. Xyler believed Earth was too dangerous to trust and demanded immediate action. He rallied support from other militaristic species, arguing that humanity's defiance set a bad example for the rest of the galaxy. Tensions rose again when reports surfaced of Xyler's fleet moving toward Earth. The Empire scrambled to intervene, sending messages urging restraint. Xerox personally contacted Bobby, warning him that trouble was brewing. "We'll handle it," Bobby assured him confidently. "We've faced worse." Back on Earth, preparations began once more. Engineers worked around the clock to upgrade defenses, while volunteers trained in case of invasion. In Las Vegas, Derek Voss unveiled a new feature for his laser array, a holographic display capable of projecting Earth's greatest achievements into space. Images of art, music, and scientific breakthroughs danced across the sky, reminding everyone, including potential invaders, of humanity's value. In Oregon, the grassroots movement Taxpayers Against Galactic Tyranny organized a massive protest called "Keep Your Warships Out of Our Orbit." Thousands gathered, holding signs and chanting slogans like "Peace Not Probes" and "No Space." Taxes means no space wars. Meanwhile, Donna Bellamy delivered another fiery speech, this time addressing both humanity and the rebellious factions of the Empire. Standing in front of cameras, she declared, "If you think we're backing down, you've got another thing coming. We fought wars, survived plagues, and invented pineapple pizza. You want to pick a fight? Fine. But remember, we don't give up, and we sure as hell don't pay taxes." Her words echoed across the galaxy, earning cheers from humans and nervous glances from alien diplomats. As Xyler's fleet approached, humanity braced for impact. But then, something unexpected happened. Other civilizations within the Galactic Empire stepped forward, siding with Earth. They admired humanity's courage, creativity, and refusal to back down, even when outnumbered. Together, they formed a coalition to mediate the conflict. Xerox played a key role in negotiations, using his diplomatic skills to broker a truce. When Xyler's forces arrived near Earth, they found themselves surrounded by a united front of planets and species determined to protect the chaotic little blue world. Xyler hesitated, realizing he was outnumbered. After hours of tense discussions, he reluctantly agreed to stand down, but not before issuing a warning. "Mark my words," he growled through the translator collar. "This isn't over." With the immediate threat neutralized, the Galactic Empire reaffirmed its commitment to coexistence. Earth officially joined the assembly, represented by Bobby Langston, who quickly became known for his loud voice, cowboy hat, and knack for turning debates into impromptu wrestling matches, metaphorically speaking. Over time, Earth's influence grew. Humans shared their culture with the galaxy, introducing aliens to rock music, street art, and tacos. In return, they received technology that helped heal the planet and improve lives. Scientists collaborated on projects ranging from clean energy solutions to faster-than-light travel. Artists exchanged ideas, creating works that blended human creativity with alien innovation. Even Derek Voss found success, selling his laser array designs to interstellar mining companies. His glitter bombs became a hit at galactic festivals, proving that sometimes chaos could bring joy. Governor Laura Hayes hosted an annual intergalactic barbecue cook-off, gazing chefs from across the stars to compete. Her brisket recipe won first prize 3 years in a row, earning her the nickname Barbecue Ambassador. And in Oregon, the statue of a human flipping off the stars became a symbol of unity. Visitors came from light years away to take photos with it, marveling at the resilience of a species that refused to bow to anyone or anything. Years later, historians would look back on this period as a turning point, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. Humanity had proven that strength didn't always come from power or weapons. Sometimes it came from stubbornness, humor, and an unshakable belief in freedom. As Bobby stood on the assembly floor, delivering yet another impassioned speech, he couldn't help but smile. Earth had entered the galactic stage kicking and screaming, but it had also brought something unique: hope. The final line of the story read, "The galaxy had met many civilizations. None of them screamed louder, fought dirtier, or paid fewer taxes than Earth." And somewhere deep in space, Zarok watched silently, his scales shimmering softly. Despite everything, he couldn't help but admire these strange, chaotic beings. After all, they reminded him of something important. Even in the vastness of the universe, there was always room for surprises.